The Mongol destruction of the Rus lands in Eastern Europe, led by Subutai and Batu, was one of their most brilliantly planned attacks. Even though they pulled back in early 1242, it wasn't the last time Europe would have to deal with them. In this video, we're going to talk about the Mongol armies returning to Hungary and Poland, all by looking at the story of the Mongol general Nogai's rise and fall. But first, did you know we have a podcast? It's called Ages of Conquest, an Alex Histoer podcast, and we think it's pretty great. We just wrapped up our series on the wars after Alexander the Great, and started a new season, all about the history of the Mongols. The first 2 episodes are out now, with about 50 more planned. Each episode goes deeper than our videos, so it's a must-listen if you're interested in Mongol history. You can find our podcast everywhere you listen or through the link in the description. It would mean a lot to us if you'd subscribe and give it a rating. After leaving the ruined Kingdom of Hungary in 1242, Batu set up his camp in the Volga steppe. Hungary and Poland were left on their own, but Bulgaria and the Rus princes were now under the rule of the Great Khan. Batu played a big part in helping Mongol become the new Great Khan in 1248, and writings from that time say Batu was like Mongol's second-in-command for the West. Even though he still lived like a nomad, Batu built a capital city named Sarai on the lower Volga River. The huge plains around it became the heart of his new empire. The destroyed Rus cities weren't very important just yet. The real money was in controlling the trade routes over land and the places they led to, like the ports on the Black Sea and the Caucasus Mountains. When Batu died in 1255, his son and grandson also died suddenly right after, so his brother Berke became the new Khan. Berke had converted to Islam, which was still pretty rare for Mongols in that area at the time. His religion was definitely a reason why things went bad between him and his cousin Hulegu, especially after Hulegu destroyed Baghdad in 1258. But they didn't actually start fighting each other until 1262. The final straws that started the war were when Hulegu took over lands in the Caucasus and Azerbaijan, and when he had Jochid princes in his group killed in 1260, claiming they were using magic. The person who led the revenge attack was the son of one of those killed princes. His name was Nogai, a great-grandson of Jochi. Because his mother wasn't a main wife, Nogai couldn't become Khan, so he put all his energy into being a soldier. He became a Muslim around the same time as Berke, and rose to become a commander of a Tumen, a unit of 10,000 soldiers. With 30,000 men, Berke and Nogai marched to get revenge for Nogai's father. They took the city of Derbent in the summer of 1262 and camped outside a town called Shamaki. Hulegu sent his first group of soldiers ahead before leaving with his main army, while another of his forces got closer. Nogai crushed the first army in mid-October, but had to run after fighting the second force. When Hulegu heard that Nogai had retreated, he marched to Shamaki and forced Berke's army to pull back as well. By December, Berke and Nogai had retreated past Derbent, leaving a group of soldiers behind to defend the strong fortress. But the fortress fell quickly on December 7th, and the enemy kept chasing Berke and Nogai. On the 15th, Nogai was badly beaten in a battle against Hulegu's son, Abaka. Seeing Nogai run off into the steppe, Abaka's commanders told him they should go back to his father, but the prince refused. With fresh soldiers sent by Hulegu, he followed their trail and found Berke's camp, which had been left in a hurry on the north side of the frozen Terek River. They had left behind tents, animals, treasure, and even their families. For 3 days, Abaka's men celebrated what they thought was a victory. They had, however, walked right into a trap. On January 13th, 1263, Berke and Nogai came back and caught Abaka's men completely by surprise. The enemy soldiers tried to run back across the frozen river, but the ice broke under their weight. Abaka managed to escape back to his father, and Berke took back the city of Derbent. Kublai Khan couldn't stop the fighting between the Golden Horde and the Ilkhanate, which were now acting like separate kingdoms. Hulegu died in 1265, and Abaka took his place. This gave Berke a chance to take control of the Caucasus region. Nogai set out with a big army in the early summer of 1265. In late July or August, he ran into an army led by Abaka's brother near the Agsu River. An arrow hit Nogai in the eye, and his army was badly defeated, forcing them to retreat. Meanwhile, both Abaka and Berke arrived with more soldiers. They lined up on opposite sides of the Kura River, shooting arrows at each other but unable to get across. They waited there for 14 days. Finally, Berke started moving toward the Georgian capital of Tiflis, but he got sick and died on the way. This led to his whole army retreating back to Sarai. This time, Abaka didn't chase them. Instead, he built a wall and a ditch along his side of the river. After losing his father, his eye, his Khan, and several battles, Nogai moved west to the land between the Dniester and Danube rivers. Berke was replaced by Mongol Timur, Batu's grandson. He made the Golden Horde stronger by making his own coins and counting all the people. He also told the Orthodox Church in Rus that they didn't have to pay taxes, which made the church a strong supporter of Mongol rule. He mostly stopped fighting the Ilkhanate, but he stayed friends with the Mamluks in Egypt and got involved in the politics of Central Asia. Mongol Timur's relationship with Nogai wasn't as close as Berke's had been, but he gave Nogai a high title and pretty much let him do his own thing. Now let's go back to Eastern Europe and see what had been happening since the 1240s. When the Mongols left, Hungary's King Bela IV finally had some room to breathe. He started building up his kingdom's defenses, telling his nobles to build stone castles. He let a group of people called the Cumans settle on the now empty Hungarian plain. They became allies after his son married the Cuman Khan's daughter. He also made marriage deals with his neighbors, but when he asked the Pope for help, he got nothing. He also ended up fighting with the King of Bohemia over some Austrian lands. In 1253, the Rus lands in the far west, Galicia and Volhynia, said they were now independent from the Mongols, led by Prince Danilo. Messengers from the Pope even crowned him a king, but a crown was the only help he got from the west. And all this attention brought the Mongols running. The first general they sent couldn't get control, so Berke replaced him with a tough veteran commander named Burundai. In 1259, Burundai marched into Galicia, and Danilo fled to Poland and then Hungary. With Danilo gone, his brother and son gave up, and Burundai ordered them to tear down all their forts. Also in 1259, Berke's messengers went to King Bela IV of Hungary. They demanded soldiers and a marriage deal. Bela used this threat to try and get the Pope to help him, but the Pope said no. This forced the king to agree to be under Mongol rule, at least in name, and he paid them money to keep them happy. This would explain why Burundai left Hungary alone when he marched into Poland in November 1259 to take back control of Galicia-Volhynia. We don't know how many men Burundai had, but his army was joined by a large group of soldiers from Galicia-Volhynia. Burundai went around the cities of Lublin and Zamość. He crossed the Vistula River and began to tear through the Polish lands. His army reached the city of Sandomierz. They surrounded it and built a wooden wall around it, trapping everyone inside. For 3 days, they fired so many arrows that the defenders couldn't even look over the walls. On the 4th day, the Mongols used ladders to get into the city. The people ran to the main tower, but the narrow bridge broke, and many fell to their deaths. Others tried to hide in the town's church, but they were trapped when it was set on fire. Anyone who survived the fire was forced out onto a plain and killed. By April 1260, Burundai's army left, taking prisoners and loot with them. There are records of a Mongol attack on Lithuania and Prussia in the same year, which badly hurt the Teutonic Knights. It's possible that Burundai's forces were the ones who attacked and destroyed things there as well. During the 1260s, Europe was mostly left alone because Berke and Hulegu were busy fighting each other. In 1261, the Byzantine Emperor Michael VIII took back Constantinople, but he found himself stuck between two Mongol groups, the Ilkhanate to the east and the Golden Horde to the north. He saw the Ilkhans as the bigger danger, so he sent one of his daughters to marry Hulegu Khan. He also put a Seljuk Sultan in prison and stopped Mamluk messengers who were on their way to the Golden Horde. Berke wanted the trade route through the Bosphorus to be open. With help from the Bulgarian Tsar, he sent an army into an area called Thrace. They rescued the Sultan in 1264 and made Emperor Michael flee back to Constantinople. When Nogai arrived in the area in the late 1260s, he became the main link for any contact between the Golden Horde and the Byzantine Empire. After Nogai arrived, one of Emperor Michael's enemies invited Nogai's army to attack the Byzantines. So Nogai's army raided and stole from Thrace in late 1271. Emperor Michael knew he couldn't beat them in a straight-up fight, so he used diplomacy. First, he made a deal with his enemy. Then, in 1272, he arranged a marriage, giving another of his daughters to Nogai. He also gave Nogai a special title. Nogai didn't really care about the gifts, but he did keep his side of the deal. He stopped his own forces and the Bulgarians from attacking the Byzantines. This also set the stage for Nogai's own plans to become more powerful in the region. The death of the Golden Horde's Khan in 1280, who was replaced by his weaker brother, meant that the only person who could control Nogai was gone. In 1282, the Byzantine Emperor Michael VIII died, and his less capable son took over. This left Nogai as the most powerful person in southeastern Europe. The new ruler of Bulgaria recognized Nogai as his boss in 1284, sending his own son as a hostage and marrying his daughter to Nogai's son. Nogai spread his power even wider, sending gifts to the Ilkhanate and keeping up his own talks with the Mamluks in Egypt. He also sent his own soldiers to help a failed attack on Poland in 1280. He got more and more involved in the politics of the Golden Horde. When the Khan removed one of the Rus Grand Princes, Nogai stepped in and helped the prince get his title back. Nogai's men also demanded lower taxes than the Khan's men did. This made many people move to Nogai's lands, which really annoyed the Rus princes, who were losing their taxpayers. They complained to the Khan, but he did nothing. By 1285, Nogai turned his attention to Hungary. The Hungarian king was part Cuman himself and was friendly to them, but there had been a big Cuman uprising. The Cumans who escaped the fighting ran to Nogai and begged him to attack Hungary. Nogai saw that one of Hungary's main defenses, the Cumans, had now fled. He also heard the young king wasn't getting along with his family. Nogai must have thought Hungary would be an easy target. Along with an ambitious prince named Telebuka, Nogai marched for Hungary. We don't have a lot of information about this attack, but it's clear it wasn't as big as the invasion of 1241. The plan wasn't to conquer Hungary, but just to raid and steal. The Rus prince of Galicia-Volhynia was ordered to send soldiers, but couldn't because he was being attacked by the Polish. Nogai and Telebuka's army, joined by other Rus princes, entered Hungary in February 1285. The army then split up, moving across the northeast and raiding the areas around the cities of Buda and Pest. The Mongols hadn't come prepared to attack cities with strong walls, so they just went around them. Nogai probably planned to use his army's speed to stay ahead of the main Hungarian army, moving fast and breaking his men into small groups to raid. But since the 1240s, Hungary had built up many local defenses. Instead of one big army, the Mongols were faced by local soldiers wherever they went. By splitting up his forces, Nogai allowed them to be beaten in smaller fights. One man named Master George was especially good at this. He used his own local soldiers to beat Mongol troops several times and sent their heads to the Hungarian king. Even though the Mongols faced tough fighting, they still managed to take prisoners and loot. But reports say they also started to suffer from hunger and sickness. Nogai and Telebuka must have decided to cut their losses and leave. They retreated in two main groups. Nogai's army went through Transylvania, but the local people blocked the mountain passes, badly defeating some of his soldiers and freeing many prisoners. The Hungarian king's army also kept attacking them as they retreated. Telebuka's army tried to cross the Carpathian Mountains, but bad spring weather destroyed the roads. They were forced off the main paths, and many of his men were lost, either starving or freezing to death, or being killed by the locals. It was a shameful end to the attack, though the number of soldiers they lost was probably made to sound bigger than it really was. When Nogai got back to his lands in 1285, he expanded into new territory near the Danube River, taking a town called Izaka and making it his new capital. In 1287, the Khan of the Golden Horde was removed from power, and Nogai's friend Telebuka was made the new Khan. In December 1287, Nogai and Telebuka marched into Poland again. This time it was to punish the Polish Duke Leszek for raids he had made. The two Mongol leaders entered the country from different directions. Telebuka tried to take the city of Sandomierz, but the defenders had learned from the last attack and forced him back. He then marched to Krakow and found that Nogai was already attacking the city. Frustrated by his own failures and by Nogai, Telebuka gave up on the attack and went home, stealing from Poland and his own subjects on the way. The defenders of Krakow fought bravely, and Nogai was only able to destroy the areas around the city before he also left in February 1288. For their brave defense, the Duke gave Krakow a break from paying taxes. Nogai blamed Telebuka for the defeat and started looking for a way to get rid of the Khan. He didn't have to wait long. A prince named Tokta was in danger from Telebuka and ran to Nogai for help. Nogai told Tokta to get an army ready. while Nogai himself pretended to be dying. He called Telebuka and his princes to his camp. Coughing up blood he had swallowed earlier, he seemed to be on his deathbed and told the princes they should all make peace. With their guard down, Tokta's army arrived and killed all the princes. By 1291, Tokta was the new Khan of the Golden Horde. Nogai went back to his own camp and continued to expand his power. He put a ruler he controlled on the throne in Bulgaria and forced the Serbian king to accept him as his boss, even making him send his son as a hostage. In his capital, he was making his own coins with his name on them. He directly controlled a large area of the Golden Horde and ordered the deaths of any rival princes who got in his way. People in the Horde were starting to resist Nogai's ambitions. Soon, Nogai and the Khan he had put in power, Tokta, were butting heads over who had more control over the Rus. Tensions were high, and the final spark came when Nogai demanded that Tokta hand over his own father-in-law. Tokta refused. In response, Nogai declared that he was independent and named himself Khan in 1296. In late 1297, their armies met. With over 40 years of experience as a commander, Nogai easily won the first fight, and Tokta's army ran away. Tokta fled, but Nogai made a mistake and didn't chase after him. He was distracted because his grandson had been killed in Crimea while trying to collect taxes, and Nogai wanted revenge. He attacked and took cities there, but this spread his army out too thin. Some princes rebelled, and even though Nogai's sons beat them, other princes left to join Tokta. Meanwhile, Tokta had used the time to bring in more soldiers from the east. Nogai sent messages to the Ilkhan, hoping for help, but Tokta had already made a truce with him. This allowed Tokta to bring even more soldiers to the fight. Nogai realized he had made a huge mistake and pulled back to his own lands as Tokta invaded with as many as 60,000 horsemen. Late that year, Nogai was caught. As the armies faced each other, the old general tried one last trick. He sent a message to Tokta, saying he was just a sick old man and that his sons were to blame for the war. At the same time, he sent his son Chaka to secretly attack Tokta from the side. But Tokta's scouts spotted the move, and he ordered an immediate attack on Nogai's tired army, which completely shattered. Fleeing with only 17 horsemen, Nogai was attacked by a group of Rus cavalry, and he was badly wounded. When he was captured, he said, "I am Nogai, take me to Tokta, for he is the Khan." They started to lead him away, but he died from his injuries before he could reach Tokta's camp. And that was the end of the reign of Nogai Khan. His sons continued to cause trouble in the area for a few more years, with one of them even briefly taking control of Bulgaria, but they were all soon defeated. This period of Mongol rule over the Rus and how the Golden Horde eventually fell apart is what we will explore in our next video. So make sure you are subscribed to our channel and have pressed the bell button. We want to thank our Patreon supporters and channel members who make these videos possible. You can also support us by buying our merchandise from the link in the description. This is Histoer, and we will catch you on the next one.